There's a disease in history that was so deadly that in the 1800s, it was responsible for 25% of all deaths in Europe. And yet, it was also called the poet's disease because of a strange phenomenon that occurred when people got it. While some diseases depleted people's mental and physical health completely, tuberculosis did something different. It seemed to enhance the creativity and spirits of writers who got it, making them extremely creative even as their physical health declined in a painful way. As they neared death, they overcame this physical pain to create masterworks of literature. Sidney Lanier believed his creativity was encouraged by tuberculosis, and his capacity for mental work increased as the disease progressed. When Percy Bysshe Shelley's health declined in 1817, he claimed to either feel terrible or be awakened to a state of unnatural and keen excitement. Over and over, there were examples of creative people having their most productive and exciting periods of work while also battling tuberculosis. In this video, we're going to talk about the culture of tuberculosis, explore this weird phenomenon called Spes Phthisica, and figure out what the heck was really going on. Let's establish first that tuberculosis wasn't a nice way to die, which probably doesn't make much sense if you've read a lot of Victorian literature because it's often portrayed as something beautiful. In this book, the main character says, "It's a path I have prayed to follow. I would wish all I love to perish of that gentle disease. How glorious!" In this one, Helen Burns has a death from tuberculosis that is angelic. She even assures Jane that she's happy. In Nicholas Nickleby, Dickens says the disease blends life and death so that death takes on the glow and hue of life. But tuberculosis wasn't a peaceful way to die. It had many names, but it was commonly called consumption because it literally consumed its victims, causing them to waste away. As it progressed, it caused shortness of breath as the lungs were increasingly damaged and coughing became worse. People became so emaciated and pale, it looked like they had hollowed out eye sockets or bones sticking out from their flesh, and it was almost always fatal. It's really hard now to imagine that this disease was ever glorified, considered the mark of a genius, and something that artists wouldn't mind getting. Lord Byron wished to die from it because the women would find him interesting. And even as all these people were dying from this disease, no one knew what the heck was going on. No one knew how it spread. It was this mystic disease. Some thought it was hereditary. Some people even thought it was caused by vampires coming back from the dead and consuming their surviving relatives. And at the same time, poets and authors were saying how it heightened their creativity and their mind. This poet, Clabund, died of tuberculosis at 37, but said they should write a history dealing with the literature of tuberculosis because it possesses the peculiarity of altering the mentality of its victims. Novalis inquired if the disease might not be a means of higher synthesis. This phenomenon was called Spes Phthisica, consumptive hope. It refers to a euphoric state, a burst of creative energy that accompanied tuberculosis. Creative people who got tuberculosis suddenly were creating a lot of work, and not only were they being highly productive, but they seemed to be in good spirits while doing it. They had more and more energy and were creating higher quality work than ever, even as their bodies withered away. And there's no shortage of examples of this phenomenon. When John Keats died at just 25, they found one of his lungs nearly disintegrated from tuberculosis. And yet he created his odes during this time, the work he's probably best known for and the work that cemented his legacy. He wrote almost all of them in the spring of 1819, and his output was considered a direct consequence of consumption. He became a shining example of Spes Phthisica. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote all these under manic conditions and spent many years confined to bed with a cough, though like many cases of the time, we don't know if that cough was tuberculosis or some other kind of similar consumptive wasting disease. Catherine Mansfield was diagnosed in her late 20s, and she was incredibly prolific in the years until her death at 34. Her creativity exploded, driven by her sense that time was running out. And the list goes on. Percy Bysshe Shelley, Franz Kafka, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Stephen Crane, Anton Chekhov, Chopin. There was a doctor that maintained that tuberculosis compensated for its brutality by allowing its victims to bear the disease not only cheerfully, but with quickening genius. The idea being that there was this divine spiritual trade-off between illness and inspiration. The idea and magic of Spes Phthisica thrived in the Romantic era, which was all about emotion over reason. The art and culture was expressive. It revered the supernatural. People began to see illness as tragic and ethereal. It even became aspirational to look ill, consumptive chic, if you will. Thin bodies, pale skin, flushed cheeks, red lips. And this idea of a creative person suffering from tuberculosis being taken too soon, it was all very romantic. Alexander Dumas once said, "It was fashion to suffer from the lungs. Everybody was consumptive, poets especially. It was good form to spit blood and to die before reaching the age of 30. There are several theories that attempted to explain this link between creativity and tuberculosis. Some believed the fever heightened perception. Others thought the disease released toxins that might stimulate creative energy. It was even suggested that these physiological changes could lead to a heightened perception of life, enabling the artist to see the world with greater clarity. Whatever caused it, it made the consumptive artist insightful and restless and really productive. This romantic image persisted until 1882 when Dr. Robert Koch identified the bacteria responsible for tuberculosis. It took out the mystery and the romance, revealing it to be a contagious bacterial infection, and not quite the mark of an artistic genius. Public health campaigns began, and even though there wouldn't be a treatment until 1943, the mortality of tuberculosis was going down by the early 1900s. The magic faded, and with it, the artistic myth of consumption also faded, though it didn't completely vanish. As tuberculosis cases declined, some worried that creativity would decline with it. In the 1930s, one doctor lamented that the decline in the disease coincided with the decline in the quality of literature, saying that by getting healthy, we might lose certain cultural joys. It was poetic logic, and kind of true in a way, but very flawed. They have never found a chemical or scientific connection between tuberculosis and genius. This is one of those correlation does not equal causation things. The real reason for the increase in creative output was likely a series of things and not really scientific things. Tuberculosis gave artists a rare opportunity to withdraw from the world. Doctors prescribed a nutritious diet, rest, and fresh air. The forced isolation paused their lives, giving them uninterrupted time to reflect and generate new ideas. With the awareness that they were dying with no cure in sight, they may have felt an urgency to leave a lasting artistic legacy. And the disease progressed slowly. Many lived for years with it undiagnosed and more years after it was diagnosed. This slow burn gave creators even more time to accomplish what they had hoped to in their short lives. Oh, there was also the widespread use of opium and its derivatives to treat pain and cough, something which we now know does alter brain states. So all these factors likely did contribute to an extremely productive time for many artists and writers with tuberculosis. But who's to say that without tuberculosis they wouldn't have thrived anyways? I want to close this by saying that tuberculosis, even though we have a cure, is still a deadly disease in many parts of the world. If you want to read more about that, I think John Green's new book, Everything is Tuberculosis, is a really good place to start. Really easy to read. I'm also going to link some scientific videos below if you want to learn more about the science behind tuberculosis and how it actually works. Thanks for watching.